Before we get to the Haftorah, the Torah calls the month of Nisan Aviv. If you take a look in your books, Exodus 12, Pasuk 4, Torah calls the name of the month Aviv. Why is it called Aviv? Aviv. You left Egypt in the month of Aviv. That's Exodus 12, Pasuk 4. The question is, why is the month of Nisan called the month of Aviv? Avi, why? Why is Nisan called the month of Aviv in Exodus 12, Exodus 13, 13:2. Exodus 13, Pasuk 2. Hayim atam yotze b'chodesh Aviv.
Spring.
But what does the word Aviv mean? Why? 105, Exodus 13, Pasuk 4, actually, right? Pasuk 4, 13:4. So the Zohar says that the word Aviv is an acronym. See the word Aviv in Hebrew? Av Yud Bet. Av Yud Bet. What does Av Yud Bet mean? Yoel, what does Av Yud Bet mean? The father of the 12 tribes. You hear this?
Yes.
Av, the word Aviv. You see it, Yoel? Aviv is an acronym like NYPD or FBI. Av Yud Bet.
I thought Aviv means spring.
Good. That's what it means on the simple level. But I'm giving you the Kabbalistic meaning. For the simple level, you don't need me, right, Ruvain? I give you stuff you don't know on your own.
You can use Google, we don't need you.
Right, I'm giving you the Kabbalistic meaning. That the word Aviv, you see how it's spelled, Masha? Av Yud Bet Shoshana. So the Zohar says, father of the 12. Amazing Zohar. The Zohar says that until the night of the Exodus, God was Boreh. He was the creator. On Pesach, God became the father of the 12 tribes. Av Yud Bet Rivka. Father of the 12. Until Pesach, he was creator. We gave him an additional status, Chanoch. We made him an Abba, a proud Papa, the Papa. When? Aviv, the month of Nisan. And therefore, God tells Jeremiah, Koyomer Hashem, Zacharti lo chesed norayich. I remember the loving kindness that you did for me, says God. Lechtech achrai bamidbar. When you follow me in the desert and the Exodus, what kind of kindness did we do for God? How can we do a kindness for God? Jeremiah chapter 2. God says, I remember the kindness when you are young, in your youth. You are my young bride. Lechtech achrai bamidbar. So the Zohar says, Chesed, Shem is chased im koinoi. Shem is chased im kono. Shalom, what does that mean? Shem is chased im kono. How do we do a chesed with our Creator? By giving him the status of a father. Bonim atem Hashem Elokeichem. B'ni b'chorvi Yisrael. The first message to Pharaoh in Exodus 4, my child, my firstborn is what? Israel. So before the Exodus, before Nisan, God was creator. The month of Nisan, Pesach, he became a proud parent. B'ni, my child, b'chorvi Yisrael, my firstborn is Israel. Av Yud Bet, Aviv. And therefore, God tells Jeremiah, I always remember the chesed that you did by making me an Abba. The Bechor is special. Why is the firstborn special? You're firstborn, right?
Yeah.
So am I. Why do we get a double portion?
I didn't.
Well, why does the Bechor get a double portion? Because he changes the status. Before they were just a couple, now they're a parent. Even 19 kids later, they're still a parent. But who changed the status from couple to parent? The firstborn. So therefore the parents owe him a double portion. Because they changed the status from couple to parent, yes?
Well, my sister's the firstborn, so why in Judaism is it the son that...
You're right. A good question. Right? It's a good question. Right? Only the firstborn male gets a double portion.
I told her I get a double portion, she said, get lost.
She said, get lost.
She's right. You weren't.
You're not the firstborn, right? Okay. So, anyway, so that's why the month is called what? Aviv. Now let's take a look at the Haftorah. Reuven asked me a very good question. Can we all get along? Mashiach can't come, Reuven asked, a good question. Mashiach can't come until what? Reunited, and it feels so good. Right? Mashiach can't come until then. So how are we going to ever get our act together? So let's look at Haftorah, Malachi 3. It's the Haftorah Shabbos HaGadol. It's the Haftorah of Shabbos HaGadol, Malachi 3. In the Birnbaum Chumash, I don't know what page it is, but what page would it be in the Birnbaum Chumash? Would you know?
This one is 1218.
In the Birnbaum Chumash, yeah. In the Art Scroll, I think it's 1218, right? In the Art Scroll, it's 1218, Avi. And the Birnbaum, I don't know which. 1220 in Art Scroll, okay.
Rabbi, based on what you said, it seems somewhat
Page 440 in this one.
440 in the Birnbaum, gray book.
that the creation acknowledges the creator.
440.
No.
It seems inverted.
But until the
Creator,
Jew...
that makes the creation.
God as a creator, but he also became a parent. We made him a parent.
But we didn't.
Yes, we did. Aviv means Av Yud Bet. You can't fight the text. I'm a text man. The Nifter is called Aviv. It's an acronym. FBI, CIA. Av Yud Bet. He became the father of the 12. When? In the month of Nisan. The Exodus.
But he was really
Because we
always
acknowledged
our
him?
father.
Because he created us. He created us. And therefore he gave us 2 Torahs, Rivka. That's a double portion. Why did he give us 2 Torahs, David? He gave us the written and the oral, right? We got a double portion. Because we're his firstborn. Exodus 4. We're his firstborn. Rivka, that's why he gave us 2. The written and the oral.
You're the only one that came up with that.
See that?
Your idea.
That's my idea. So why did he give us 2? You know, God went shopping the Torah, Rivka. You know, the Medrash says, and they all turned them down. The UN, the FBI, the UN and the EU, they all turned him down. He came to the Jews and he says, Jews, I have something good for you. So the first question a Jew asks is, how much does it cost? So God said it's free. So we said, if it's free, then we'll take 2. So he gave us the written and the oral. But the real reason he gave us 2, because we are his Bechor. Avi, the Bechor gets what?
2 portions.
Pishnayim, a double portion. That's why we got 2 Torahs, Mashi. You didn't know that. Now look at the Haftorah. Why is it called Shabbos HaGadol? You read this Haftorah, it doesn't have to seem to have anything to do with Pesach. Why is this Shabbos called HaGadol? Because the rabbi gives a big speech?
No, because they sacrificed the sheep.
So it got to do with Shabbos. What it got to do with Shabbos?
That week that they did.
The year of the Exodus, the 10th of Nisan that year, when God said take a sheep, the 10th of Nisan that year was what?
You gotta admit,
Shabbos.
at least the Samaritans are still doing it.
Right? The 10th of Nisan that year was Shabbos. We took the Avodah Zorah of Mitzrayim. Right? We risked our lives that there would be no pogroms or riots. So it's a Nes Gadol that the Mitzrim didn't massacre us and start a pogrom. So it's called Shabbos HaGadol, because that year, the 10th of Nisan, when the Jews took the lamb, Aviva, the Jews took the lamb, that year, the 10th of Nisan was Shabbat. It was a great miracle that the Mitzrim didn't what? Murder the Jewish slaves. So that's one reason why it's called what? Shabbos HaGadol. Of course, there are many other reasons, and we'll see other reasons as well. A reason that is not well known is, you know, you can't ask the same ma nishtana, the same questions every year. You have to ask a new one. David, Ma nishtana Pesach mikol hachagim. Pesach is the only Chag that's called Shabbat. Do you know that? Let's go to the video. Good thing we have the Chamoshim with us. Lingy, you have a book? Pesach is the only Chag that's... Yom Kippur is called Shabbat Shabbaton. Masha, don't mix me up. Shabbat. Yom Kippur is called Shabbat Shabbaton. But Pesach is the only Chag that is called Shabbat. Yom Kippur is called Shabbat Shabbaton. If you look at Leviticus 23, Pasuk 15, Vayikra 23, Pasuk 15, who says, Usfarta lechem mimochrat HaShabbat. You shall begin counting the Omer from the tomorrow of Shabbat. What does that mean? In Vayikra 23, Pasuk 15, I wonder how does he translate that?
You shall count for yourselves from the morrow of the rest day, from the day when you...
The rest day.
Rest day.
What does Birnbaum say?
From the day when you bring over the waving seven, which they should...
I know, but what's what Birnbaum say? Vayikra 23, 15. Usvarta lechem mimochrat HaShabbat. You begin counting the Omer on the next day of Shabbat. No, when do you begin counting the Omer? The next day of Pesach. So Pesach is the only Chag that is called what? Shabbat. What does Birnbaum say? Avi, you ain't got it? Vayikra 23, 15. How does Birnbaum translate that?
So you shall count from the day following the day of rest, from the day that...
Day of rest. Which day of rest? Which day? When do you count the Omer, Rivka? When?
Pesach.
The next day of Pesach.
The day after Pesach.
So Ma Nishtana, David, where are you going to be by the Seder?
Not sure yet.
Oh, wherever you go, please ask this question. Ma Nishtana Pesach Mikol HaChagim. It's the only Chag that is called Shabbat in the Torah.
196.
You hear? And this is the reason why the Shabbat before Pesach is called Shabbat HaGadol. Why? Because since Pesach is called Shabbat, so I might think that since Pesach is the only Chag called Shabbat, it has the same Kiddush as what? As a real Shabbat. So the Torah has to say, so we say Shabbat HaGadol, even though Pesach is called Shabbat, but it's still not as great as the real Shabbat. So therefore, the Shabbos before the Chag that's called Shabbat, it's called what? Shabbat HaGadol. To differentiate between what? A regular Shabbat and Pesach Shabbat. That even though Pesach is called Shabbat, it's still not as great as the real Shabbat. Get it? So therefore, the week before the Chag that's called Shabbat is called Gadol.
But there's also,
This is my original interpretation. I want you to give it over. I like it. If I say, Shalom, you like it? You don't like it? Why not?
there's also Shabbat during Pesach.
Ritzei v'hachlutzenu b'yoyim haShabbat haGadol hazeh. Every Shabbat is Shabbat. When you say in the benching, Yehuda, Ritzei v'hachlutzenu
Shabbos HaGadol.
b'yom haShabbat haGadol hazeh. Every Shabbos is Gadol. Shabbos is the greatest Kedusha, more than Yom Kippur. You know that? Did you know that?
More aliyahs.
Beautiful. Yom Kippur, you only have 6 aliyahs.
No.
Yom Kippur, you only have 6 aliyahs. Shabbos, you have 7. If you want to measure the Kedusha of the day, it's contained in what? The aliyahs. Yom Kippur only has 6. Shabbos has 7. So every Shabbos is a Gadol. So since Pesach is called Shabbat, Masha'im, I think it's as great as a real Shabbat. So therefore, the Shabbos right before the Chag that's called Shabbat is called Gadol. Because even though Pesach is called Shabbat, it's still not as great as a real Shabbat. I want you to give it over. Now, so that's why, so that begs the question, what ma nishtana Pesach mikol HaChagim, that's the only Chag that what? That is called Shabbat. That's the $64 question. In Vayikra 23:15. So to answer this question, we have to ask another one. The Gemara in Shabbos, page 119 says, whoever makes Kiddush on Friday night and knows what he's saying, all of his sins are forgiven. Yiddish? Tractate Shabbos, page 119. Anyone who makes Kiddush on Friday night and knows what he's saying, all of his sins are forgiven. You don't have to wait to Kol Nidre. Kol Nidre, you're fasting. Friday night you're having your chopped liver and your chicken soup, and you're still getting kapara. Why? Why does the Gemara in Shabbos say that? So the Maral explains, when we make Kiddush, what are we doing? We're testifying that He created the world. I just want to testify. We are God's witnesses. And the halach is a Rasha Apostle Edut, Shoshana. What's a Rasha Apostle Edut? Someone that's a sinner, his testimony is invalid. And God follows His own rules. So we testify for God when we make Kiddush Friday night. He must forgive us. I think it's called the catch-22. Because otherwise, He can't accept our testimony. He follows His own Torah.
First He forgives us, then
You hear that? So if you hear Kiddush Friday night, and you know what you're saying, you're testifying that God created the world is not hefker, you're getting kapara. Because arasha posol le'edut. Reuben, isn't that a bargain? So have that in mind Friday night with Kiddush. Says the Maral, based on this Gemara, when we make Kiddush on Pesach night, Rivka, we're also testifying for him. What are we testifying? That he became our parent. That he created us. He gave birth to us on Pesach night. So we're also testifying for him. On Friday night, we're testifying that he created the world. On Pesach night, Lingi, we are testifying that he created the Jewish people. We're also testifying for him. And therefore, he must forgive us. So the same power of atonement that Shabbat has, David, Yom Kippur has, Pesach has. Because on Shabbat, we testify with the Kiddush, Aviva, he created the world. On Pesach night, we testify he created the Jewish people. And a witness cannot be a Rasha. A Rasha Apostle Edut. You have to give this over to Seder. You have to give Ma Nishtana Pesach from all the Chagim. It's the only Chag why it's called Shabbat. Right? Leviticus 23. And now I gave you the answer according to the what? The Holy Maral, the Kabbalistic answer. Pesach, we testify that he created the Jewish people. Friday night, we testify he created the world. David, you like that, huh? So remember, and this Friday night, we're going to have kapara. But on Pesach night, which is also Friday night, we're going to get a double kapara. Because it's going to be Friday night, and it's going to be what? Pesach. Double your pleasure, double your fun. A twofer. Jews love bargains, right? Twofer. Now let's get to before I forget, I remember Reuven's question. I didn't forget his question. What?
I have a question. Does the Shabbos elevate the Pesach holiday, or does the Pesach elevate?
That's a very good question. We say Mikadesh. What's the bracha you're going to make in this one essay? Baruch Ato Hashem Mikadesh HaShabbat VYisrael VHazmanim. Who sanctifies Shabbat?
God.
Who sanctifies Pesach and all the Chagim?
We do.
We do. Baruch Ato Hashem, blessed are you, God. You sanctify Shabbat, and you sanctify Israel, and Israel sanctifies the Moyadim. Right, Shalom? Baruch Ato Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbat VYisrael, VHazmanim. God sanctifies Shabbat and us, and we, with His power, sanctify the Chagim. Wow. We are God's partner. When you make Kiddush on Friday night and Yom Tov night, the Gemara says in Shabbos 119, we become His partner in creating the world. Because If we don't testify that he created the world, who's going to know about it? The J witnesses? They're phony testimony, the J witnesses. We're Adat Yisrael. Adat, we are his witnesses.
Therefore, is it Pasei Nisim for Pesach?
What?
Is there a mitzvah to Pasei Nisim to publicize the miracle for
Parsumei Nisa, that's the Arba Kosot. Right? The Chazal were metakin the Arba Kosot to publicize the miracle. The miracle of what? That God created the Jewish people on Pesach. That God became our parent on Pesach. You writing this down? I hope you are. We'll publicize that. We're not the other Chag. One Chag at a time. Don't mix me up. One Chag. Pesach, we publicize Parsumei Nisa, that God gave birth to us. Moral Mi Prague. Created us. Like a parent creates a child. And therefore it's called Av Yud Bet Aviv. In Exodus 4, his first message to Pharaoh, Beni, my child, Bechori, my firstborn is Israel. Every one of us is like a firstborn to God. A family could have 19 children, there could only be what? One firstborn. All of us are like God's firstborn child. Who loves you, baby? Now, let's get to the Haftorah before I forget, Reuben. You have the Haftorah. Let's get to the Haftorah and see how it ties in to Pesach. It doesn't seem to say anything about Pesach here at all. So let's see a first tie-in. Now, Pasuk Vav. You have that 6? Anybody want to read that in English? Malachi 3, Pasuk 6. Any volunteers?
I, Hashem, have not changed, and you, O children of Jacob, have not ceased to be.
Oh, I, God, do not change, and you, the children of Jacob, will never be destroyed. Despite Abu Mamzer, despite Ayatollah Khamenei, despite Hitler and our peace partners. Look, topical, current events, Aviva. They're building the bomb in Iran, right? God swears that the Jewish people will never be destroyed. I, God, don't change my mind. There is no replacement theology. Christianity is all based on falsehood. I, God, never change, and you, the children of Jacob, will never be destroyed. That means that the Gula will come, just like there was a first Gula. Why do you read this before Pesach? Just like there was a first Gula Mitzrayim, despite the fact the Jews were a Memtesh Shari Tumah, there'll be a final Gula. Even though we elect Bernie Sanders, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. There will be a final Gula. Don't you see how it ties in? Right? The Jewish people were in the lowest depths. Right, Shoshana? Memtesh Shari Tumah. And the Gula came despite. So God says, I don't change my mind. Just like there was a first Gula, there's going to be what? That's why you read this right before Pesach. Pesach was the first Gula, but that was just the beginning. The final Gula will come only when the Mashiach comes. Okay, now how does this tie into Pesach? Look at Pasuk 10. Anybody want to read Pasuk 10, David? What?
Mashiach comes, will we still celebrate Pesach?
Of course. One of the Animamins,
That's going to be even bigger miracles.
right? Jeremiah says that we're going to talk about the miracles of what? Of the Mashiach, but we're not going to stop talking about the miracles of the Exodus. The Exodus will take a back seat. You're still in the car. The front seat, we're going to talk about the miracles of what? Of Mashiach. But we're still going to talk about the Exodus. Look in Jeremiah. One of the Animamins is, David, that the Torah that we have is what? Eternal, won't change. But look at verse 10. Anybody want to read verse 10? Malachi 3:10? No?
Bring the entire tithe to the storehouse.
What page in the Birnbaum?
I think it was 440.
In the Birnbaum, Masha, what page in the Birnbaum? 440. Avi, there's an extra gray book there next to Rivka.
The entire tithe to the storehouse.
Oh, she has one, he has one.
And test me thereby, says Hashem, Master Legions, if I have not opened for you the windows of the heaven and poured out for you the blessing beyond your capacity.
So what's he saying? Bring your tithes, give your tithes. That's Moyes Chittin. Before Pesach, many people are needy. Make sure to give your tithes in time of Pesach so the less fortunate can also enjoy the holiday. You see how it ties in? Okay, but the real climax, remember Malachi was the last of the prophets. And look what he says in Pasuk 22. Every Jew at 22. You want to read that? No, Chanok? You ain't got it? Yeah? No?
Remember the teaching of Moses my servant, which I commanded him at Horeb for all Israel, decrees and ordinances.
Now what you're saying, I'll read it in Hebrew. 22. Zichru, remember Torah's Moshe Avdi. God is speaking to the mouth of the prophet. Remember the Torah of Moshe, my slave. Pesach was the holiday, Rivka. We, what? Freedom to be slaves. Freedom to be slaves. Hello? We graduated from being Pharaoh's slaves to being God's slaves. The highest calling is to be a slave of God.
What is slave? Why call it a slave?
Zichru Torah's Moshe Avdi. Remember, God says, the Torah of Moshe, my slave. Asher tiviti oto. Eved means, don't beat around the bush. Let's not be PC. An Eved means a slave.
I thought a servant, an Eved is a servant.
Eved means a slave. A fancy word is servant. Rivka, freedom to be slaves.
Contradictory.
Hello? Why did we spend 210 years in Egypt as slaves? So the Zohar says, if you want to be a slave to God, you got to go to slave school. You just can't be a slave to God. You got to go to the Harvard University of Slave School. And what was that? Egypt.
What kind of degree do you get?
Egypt. Where we got a degree in how to be a slave. Didn't you know that, Rivka? We learned what it means to be subservient. Now you learned. Now God says you're graduating from slave school. 210 years on-the-job training.
What's the retirement plan?
Eternal life.
Right? We graduated from being a slave to Paroi to being a slave to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because that's the highest calling. How did God eulogize Moses? A very short eulogy. The end of Deuteronomy 33. Moses died there, the slave of God. Very short eulogy. Vayom Hashem Moshe Eved Hashem. That's what God said at his funeral. The greatest human being who ever lived was given the greatest title. Can you please close that? To be a slave to God. Wow. So, verse 22, they're playing my song. Zichri Torah's Moshe Avdi, remember the Torah of my servant or slave Moses, which I commanded him in Horeb. What's Horeb? Har Sinai? To the Jews, Chukim and Mishpatim. What does Chukim mean? Laws between man and God. What does Mishpatim mean, David? Laws between man and man. What does a slave mean? A slave has no identity of his own. He lives only for his master.
He controls actions.
We live for our master. My identity is to be an Eved Hashem. But you don't get there overnight, Shoshana. You got to go to a training program. Egyptian slavery, Chanoch, was basic training. How to be an Eved Hashem. This is all Seder night talk. You can't say the same thing every year.
Rabbi,
Hello? You're not writing it down.
Rabbi, what about free will? Where does free will fall in? You're a slave. Yeah.
I'm giving up my free will. That's the greatest degree. I'm totally giving myself totally to my master.
But you're choosing to do that.
I'm choosing. That's the ultimate. Chanoch, you're beautiful. The ultimate expression of free will. I make a conscious decision to nullify my identity to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the greatest expression, Avi, of what? Of free will. That's what Pesach is not. But we had to go to slave school, right? And that's Egypt. Now, To answer Ruvain's question, now another reason why Shabbos is called Shabbos HaGadol, look at Pasuk 23. I'll read it in Hebrew. Verse 23. Lingy, you have it? Hine, wow. Anochi I. Who's the speaker here? God is speaking through the mouth of Malachi. Verse 23. Hine, wow. Anochi I, God. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. You have it, Rivka? Shaleach lechem. Send you as Elia Hanavi. The prophet Elia. Lifnei, before. Bo Yom Hashem. What's the next word? HaGadol. V'hanorah. Therefore, the Shabbos is called Shabbos HaGadol because we read this pasuk. God says, I send you Eliyahu Hanavi to announce the awesome and great day of the coming of God. What is that? The Mashiach.
Moshe also called Hashem HaGadol.
What?
Many references say that Moshe referred to Hashem.
Yes, look in Deuteronomy. Moses calls God HaGadol v'hanorah. To come full circle. Moses was the first of the prophets. Malachi is the same. They all have the same message. Lifnei bo yom Hashem HaGadol v'hanorah. And therefore, another reason why the Shabbos is called Aviva what? Gadol. Now look at the way Eliyahu is spelled. It's spelled very funny. Elia, Ruvain. It's not a typo, God forbid. There's a missing vav. Eliyahu is spelled normally with an Eliyahu. Here it's written Elia. Elia.
Because Yaakov took it back.
Okay, so Rashi says, but Rabbi Yaakov Goldman says, 5 times in the Torah, the word Eliyahu is written lacking a vav. 5 times. And 5 in Tanakh. And 5 times in Tanakh, the word Yaakov is written with an extra vav. So Rashi quotes the Midrash that Yaakov, what's the word? Hijacked, took a mortgage, the vav from Eliyahu's name, and he won't give it back until what? He comes to announce the redemption. So, therefore, Elia is written 5 times lacking a vav, and the name Yaakov is written 5 times with an extra vav. Says the Midrash, quoted by Rashi, that Yaakov took hostage, is that the word Rivka? The letter vav from Elia, and you ain't getting it back until you come and redeem my children. Why dafka vav? Why didn't you hijack another letter, Masha? What does a vav mean in Hebrew?
Hook, yeah.
Vav means a hook. No matter how sinful the Jewish people are, even in Memtesh Sharei Tumah, the connection between us and God can never be broken. The vav, lingi, looks like a hook, and in Hebrew a vav means a hook. I'm hooked on a feeling. No matter how verblunget we are, how do you say verkrochen and verblunget? Lost. We can never break the vav between us and Him. Because a parent can never divorce a child. And God says we are His firstborn child. Not just a child, firstborn. Exodus 4. You can never divorce a child. Never! So the vav is what? The eternal link that connects us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Rabbi, is this mutual acknowledgement of father and child?
Well, you know, well, can a child divorce a parent? Or parent divorce a child? No. So that's the vav. We and God, we might have our spats, right? But the vav is unbreakable. Now, the word Elia, I'll give you another meaning. Look at the word Elia in verse 23. There are no dots in a Tanakh, Yehuda. The word Elia can be written Aliyah. David, you with me on this, Avram? You got to write this down. I'll give you, this is all talk for the Seder. I send you Elia Hanavi. I gave you one interpretation. Yaakov Goldman gave you one. I'll give you another interpretation. The word Elia, there are no dots in a Tanakh. It could be read Aliyah. What does Aliyah mean in Hebrew, Avram? What does Aliyah mean in Hebrew? It means the tail end. I send you Aliyah Hanavi. He is going to be the tail end of the exile. Ooh. Why is Elijah called here Aliyah? Yehuda. Aliyah in Hebrew means the tail end. Ask Ulpan teacher. He is going to come to announce the tail end of the exile. Pesach was just the beginning of the story. Lingi, the long and winding road, ta-ta. It began with the Exodus. It's not going to end until Elijah will come to announce the Aliyah. Aliyah in Hebrew means tail end. That's why his name is written defectively. You're not going to hear this nowhere else. You got to write this down.
Does this mean the fat lady's going to sing?
Oh, now we get to Ruvain's question. But we said Mashiach can't come until what? Can we all get along? Who said that? I think Rodney King. Can we all get along? So, look at Pasuk 24, Ruvain. Let's see if the English is right. Verse 24.
We shall restore the heart of the fathers to children, and the heart of children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the land with destruction.
So what's the job of Eliyahu Hanavi? V'heishiv leiv avot al banim, v'leiv banim al avotam. We are living this. We are living this. It's amazing that now the children are being mekar of the parents. Thousands of balatchuvas that grew up irreligious, the parents don't know from anything. It's normally the father makes the kids religious, right? But here it's going to be the Heishiv leiv avos al banim b'leiv banim al avotam. The children are making the parents bal tshuva. He prophesied this 2,400 years ago. Thousands of bal tshuvas are bringing their parents back. Eliyahu Navi's job is to get rid of the generation gap. He will unite us. Not just parents and children, but all Yidden are going to bury the hatchet. Not in each other's backs, Avi. No. That's the job. We can't do it on our own, Ruvain. We need help, and God is going to send us. He's going to have that awesome power to bring back quarreling families, parents, children, Jews that quarrel. And only then can the Mashiach come. Because if not, look at verse 24 again.
The end of the verse.
Oh, yeah, want to read it slowly, Ruvain, in the beginning? You have it? Want to read it? No? Anybody else want to read it? Verse 24, slow. What? Avi will read it, slow. No, in Hebrew, in English.
Remember the teaching of my servant Moses, the steps.
No, the one after that. Next one.
Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the arrival of the great and awesome
HaGadol, Shabbos HaGadol. Next. Next verse. Go ahead.
Turn the hearts of fathers to their children, and the hearts of children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the land
With what?
Doom.
Destruction.
God says, because if you guys don't unite, that I don't want to say what I'm going to smite the land with what? With terrorism. Oh my God. Shh. When Jews don't get along, there is terrorism. Talk about current events in the Haftorah. It's unbelievable. Avos Habanim is just a metaphor, David. When Jews quarrel, then the land, haaretz, what's haaretz? The land is struck with terrorism. So we don't want to end on a bad note, so therefore we repeat verse 23. We repeat verse 23, behold, I send you Aliyah Hanavi, before Lifnei Bo Yom Hashem HaGadol V'Hanora. What does Norah mean? Awesome, dude. So this is another reason why this Shabbos is called the Gadol, because this is the Haftorah.
Should the Mashiach come then on this day?
Mashiach can't come on Shabbat, right? But Mashiach, as the Talmud says, that just like the first Geula took place when? In Nisan, The final Geula will also take place, what? In the month of Nisan. Okay, so we still have time, right? We still have time. Let's speak a bit about Metzorah. Let's not forget Metzorah. David, I hope you write this down. Parshas Metzorah is Shabbos HaGadol. That means there must be a connection between what? The Parsha and Pesach. It's not Stam. If you look at Leviticus 14, Aram, Vayikra 14 is a Torah reading. So is it a coinky dinky that Parshas Metzorah is read the week of Pesach? There are no coinky dinkies. Pesach. Why is the holiday called Pesach? The Zohar says Pesach is an acronym. The mouth speaks. Pesach. Why did a person become a Metzorah? Metzorah is an acronym, Motzi Shemra. Motzi Shemra. He brought forth slander. So the Zohar says, what's the tikkun for Motzi Shemra? Pesach. You sinned with the mouth by speaking slander. Now use your mouth to speak about the Exodus. The way you sinned is the way what? You repair the damage. Metzorah, Vayikra 14, Pasuk 1. Metzorah is an acronym, Motzi Shemra. Pesach. You spoke slander, now speak the story of the Exodus, and that's going to be the tikkun. The power of a word. People say, Lashon Hara, it's only words. Killing me softly with words, killing me softly with words, killing me softly with words, killing me softly. Character assassination. You can destroy a person with words. The tikkun is Pesach. Now, it's amazing. What is the lesson of the Metzorah over here? How does it become? People say it's only a word. Big deal. So we teach him. It's only a word. One word from the Kohen. The Kohen pronounces him what? Tameh. Destroys his whole life. He has to be Badad Yeshe B'chutz Lamachne. Before, everything's okay. Once the Kohen says the word Tameh, it's only a word. His entire life is destroyed. He has to leave his home, his family. He has to live in an isolation outside of the city. But it's only a word. And then when he does tshuva, the Kohen pronounces him what? Tahor. Now he's what? Just a word. Aviva, the power of words. It can destroy and build. One word from the Kohen, Tameh, his life is destroyed. He has to leave his wife and kids. One word from the Kohen, Tahor, he gets his life back. So we teach the Metzorah the awesome power of what? Word. What does Mishlei say? Life and death are what? In the tongue. Wow.
So your tongue is mightier than the sword.
That's right. The Kohen says Tameh, it's only a word. His life is over. Destroyed. The Kohen says Tahor, he gets his life back. We teach him the awesome power of words.
Metzorah means tradition as well.
What? Metzorah means Motzi Shemra, to bring forth slander.
It also means tradition. Metzorah, we have Metzorah.
What?
It also
Mesorah, what are you mixing up apples and Mesorah, please. Mesorah, with a mem samach, different word. Mesorah means to give over dish, but not Metzorah. Right? Like a person reads the word chelev, a cholav. I mean, anyway, so this is the great Shabbos. Every Shabbos is great. But since Pesach is the only Chag that's called Shabbos, so we want to differentiate between a real Shabbos and a Chag Shabbos. Now, even though Pesach is called Shabbos, it's still not as great as what? As the real Shabbos, as the Shabbat HaGadol. Thank you. Sunday we have a class, David. There'll be our grand finale. Sunday, my class is called Astrology in the Exodus.
There'll be a class?
Sunday at 2 o'clock, the grand finale. Right? Sunday at 2. Did astrology play a role in the Exodus? Say what? Astrology actually played a role in the Exodus. So that's Sunday at 2 o'clock. Please be here for the grand finale. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.